Hello, everybody, for this new session related to an e-invoicing update in Europe. I'm very pleased to be here today to walk you through the e-invoicing update. So maybe as an introduction, my name is Camilla Ferrat. I am Director of the e-invoicing and live reporting solution at Avalara. Before joining Avalara, I spent more than 13 years working on e-invoicing and e-reporting issues to support companies in France and all over the world, and also tax authorities who are planning or who plan to put e-invoicing in place. I'm also an active member in different local and international organizations to represent Avalara as a service provider. For the session today, I will be with my colleague, Michaela. Michaela, over to you.
Thank you, Camilla. Hello, my name is Michaela Duncan. I've been with Avalara since May 22. I have 25 plus years of experience in finance and accounting in different industries. And the last 8 years, I have good experience with global VAT, GST, and sales tax. And I come from a background, as I said, with different industries. So I have quite a good and solid base in business process automation with a good understanding of pain points and how to solve them. Today, we want to speak a little bit about Avalara, what we do, give you an overview of the new coming mandates, deep dive into countries in Poland, France, Romania, Belgium, and Germany, do the EU initiative, ViDA, and look at what impact accountant roles and services are there, and then how Avalara can support you and your clients with that. About Avalara, let's start with that. We are a company that is disrupting the status quo of global tax management since 2004. We are a tech company. So we have our cloud-based tax automation that helps businesses of all sizes achieve compliance and reduce risk, streamline processes, supporting 30,000 customers globally, covering 193 countries in one way or the other. As a tech company, we are very proud that we have over 1,200 pre-built integrations, and due to being present on 4 continents with 22 offices across the globe, we have extensive language capability as well. Camilla is going to take you now to digital reporting requirements and an overview of that. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So digital reporting requirement or e-invoicing or e-reporting or clearance model or CTC, you've heard about all of those. So why tax authorities are introducing digital reporting requirement? It's mainly for 3 reasons. The first one is to reduce VAT gaps, because companies or authorities are saying that thanks to invoicing, the VAT gap in Europe has been reduced. And as you can see here, in Europe, in the report that has been published a few weeks ago, we can see that the VAT gap in Europe has been reduced. We don't know if the e-invoicing is the only reason, but obviously it went down from 93 billion euros to 61 billion euros. Other reasons for tax authorities to introduce digital reporting requirements are because they want to be digital. So they want to improve the way they are doing their tax audit. And also they are trying to move away from the summary returns that are being received today by the tax authorities from companies, and they are asking for more granular data in order for the tax authorities to have more transparency and to have access to detailed data of the companies. In order to get the data from the companies, tax authorities have or are using different categories of the digital reporting requirement. We can have, I try to classify them here into 4 types of categories. The first two categories, called the SAFTI and VAT listing, are categories or e-reporting that are usually submitted to the tax authorities during certain period. So the SAFTI is a big file that has more than 1,000 fields. Usually, we can find within the SAFTI file accounting data, inbound invoicing data, outbound invoicing data, and other data such as clients, suppliers, master data. It has been one of the first maybe digital reporting submitted to tax authorities, and I think in Europe, Portugal was the first one to introduce SAFTI in 2008, and then we saw a lot of other countries who are asking for this SAFTI, as Luxembourg, for example, as you can see here. And then we have the second type, which is the VAT listing. The VAT listing is part or a small part of the SAFTI, as it has in it usually inbound and outbound invoicing data. As the SAFTI, it has to be submitted to the tax authorities in specific period of time. It can be monthly, quarterly, or yearly. In the countries where those type of e-reporting obligation exist, the companies are still free in the format of the invoice that are being exchanged. So sometimes they can exchange paper invoices or electronic invoices, but electronic invoicing is not mandatory usually in those countries. And then we have the other two categories called real-time reporting, as the one we have in Spain, the CII in Spain, where companies will have or have to send their invoicing data to the tax authorities. But in this case, it is almost in a real time. So in Spain, for example, within 5 days after the issuing or the receiving of the invoice, a Spanish company has to send the invoicing data to the tax authorities through the ACCA reporting. And then finally, we have the real e-invoicing. In the countries where e-invoicing is mandatory, usually companies have the obligation to exchange the invoices in electronic format. So as a supplier, I need to issue my invoice in an electronic format, and as a receiver, I need to receive it in an electronic format, and the tax authorities will sometimes come into the middle to get the invoices. So as you can see, 4 different categories, but the implementation methods, or what we call in the industry the models of e-invoicing, are different from one country to another. As you can see here in this slide, we have different models. The first one, what is called periodical VAT reporting, is like the VAT listing or the real-time reporting that we just saw, where after the issuance or the receiving of the invoice, the supplier and the buyer will have to send their invoicing data to the tax authorities during a tax audit, but they are free to exchange the invoices in any format they want. And in some countries, for example, for B2G transactions, we can see that those countries are using PayPal network, for example, to exchange the invoices. And then we have the other type of or another model, we call live VAT reporting, where the companies will have to send the data to the tax authorities. Usually it is the supplier who do that, and the buyer will just need to receive his invoice. The third maybe model, which is again one of the oldest model that is applicable in the Latin American countries and some countries in Europe, is called the clearance model. In a clearance model, companies are still maybe free to exchange the invoices in any format they want. But before issuing the invoice, the supplier needs to send the invoice to tax authorities. So the tax authorities will validate or clear or pre-clear the invoice. So he has the possibility to issue the invoice and to send it to the buyer. And then we have the central insurance model. It is a model that we can find in Italy, for example, and in those countries, the relationship between an issuer and the supplier is disconnected because the tax authorities will come into the middle. So any invoice that is being exchanged by any supplier and buyer will have to go through a national portal. And then so the supplier sends his invoice to the national portal, and the national portal will send the invoice to the buyer. And then we have what we call decentralized CTC model, or the 5 or 6 corner models, which is a model that is being proposed by the industry to the different tax authorities. And France, for example, is one of the countries who is pushing for this model. So basically, the suppliers and buyers can exchange their invoices as they are doing now, but in the meantime, the tax authorities can have access to the data. So in this type of countries, we'll have both e-invoicing and e-reporting obligations. In terms of the format of those digital reporting requirements, obviously, it is usually, if I can start with the structured format. So whenever there is an e-reporting obligation, the VAT listing, the real-time reporting, the safety, those data must be submitted to the tax authorities in a structured format, which is an XML like CII or UBA. However, if we are on the invoicing area, there we can have different type of format. It can be a structured format, as you can see later in the different countries who are planning invoicing, and it can be other type of format. The first one would be the hybrid format, which is a PDF that include inside an XML document. We can find as example Facturix in France as a model for this hybrid format. And finally, we can find unstructured format. As example, we can find a PDF, for example. Usually it is not considered as an electronic invoice in the industry, but according to the VAT directive, a PDF invoice is still an electronic invoice. But within those e-invoicing mandate, it is something that starts to disappear as tax authorities are requesting for more and more structured data than unstructured data. Maybe over to you, Michaela, so you can walk us through the timeline and of the different e-invoicing obligations that are coming.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Camilla. As you all can see here and probably be aware, e-invoicing live reporting is not something new. It started 2 decades ago, mainly in Brazil and Latin, all the Latin American countries, or most of them. And with Italy in Europe was the first one that practically by 2019 did an extension of the B2G e-invoicing model as well. Portugal, as we heard earlier, used the safety, so that was the first one as well there. And Europe with B2G, with PEPL or individual mandates followed suit. Saudi Arabia, for example, introduced Fatura e-invoicing with their first phase 1 and a QR code. And then, as you can see, PEPL also plays quite a big role here in countries like Norway, Iceland, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. With that, a big push started coming in 2022, with more European countries following suit, as you can see here. But I think the thing to mention here is that quite a lot of like Belgium, Australia, New Zealand really went for the PEPL model as well, as it's been a trusted and tested model to use. And in December 22, the ViDA came into play here, with the digital age was proposed here in December 22. At the moment, we can see Luxembourg is using e-invoicing on B2G, also on PEPL. Saudi Arabia has now finished phase 2. I think they went into it went live in Q4 23. Portugal, again for SAFTI, but also now pre-clearance models and digital signatures, as we heard earlier. Interesting here, Serbia is preparing as well on the European models and leaning onto that in terms of coming into the European Union. And then what is quite interesting here, USA all of a sudden turned up and said, we wanna be part of that as well. And for 2024, so next year, quite important, Poland going mandatory, Portugal, Romania, Malaysia, Israel, please, is April 24, so that's not far away either. And then obviously the Germany and France, which used to be here in more of the 2024-2025 column, have moved out now a little bit, as well as Spain. So we are going to see some updates here as well. So it's quite important to keep an eye on those timelines here. And then maybe quite important to notice is that ViDA is proposed for being fully introduced by 2030. We are going to the first country we want to have a quick update on, which is Poland. As I mentioned earlier, it's at the moment it is voluntarily and it's live. But from July 2024, for non-exempt business companies, it will be mandatory, and from January 1st, 2025, it will also be mandatory for exempt businesses. Quite interesting at the moment for voluntarily businesses who using it, the supplier and the receiver must agree and consent to receiving e-invoicing via KSEF. Mandatory invoicing will be applicable for companies both established in Poland as well as just VAT registered in Poland. And the KSEF, the platform, the e-invoicing system, the national e-invoicing system in Poland needs to be used by Polish companies. And also Polish taxpayers need to issue and receive structured e-invoices in a specific format. That's an XML format that allows that follows the logical structure, and it's referred to as FA-VAT. Each invoice will be or must be validated and cleared by KSF before issuing it to the buyer. Sending attachment and attached documents with an invoice will be not possible as it used to be before. As we mentioned earlier, the models you can see here, Poland is using the clearance model. Practically, your ERP system issuing the invoice via the API integration. It gets then converted in the mapping data here, and practically the data will be digested into the right XML invoice format and sent via API to KSF that will validate, check, and clear the invoice and send it back. So you have a unique invoice number, a KSF identity number given as well. Camilla is joining us from France, so I will let Camilla update you on France. Thank you.
Thank you. So for France, I will probably spend hours and days speaking about France, but I will try to give you a high-level summary about what's going on in France about this e-invoicing. So France introducing mandatory B2B invoicing for French taxpayers and for domestic transactions. So if you are operating in France from September 2026, you will have the obligation to exchange, so to send and receive your invoices in one of the electronic format that are required by the French tax authorities, which are CII, UBL, or Facturix. In addition to this e-invoicing obligation, you will have also in France what we call an e-reporting obligation. This e-reporting obligation will be applicable to all of the other transactions that you would have in France. Non-domestic B2B e-invoicing, outbound and inbound B2C invoicing, and also payment data for certain type of transaction. And all of those e-reporting data has to be sent to the tax authorities through another format, which is an XML format. In order to be able to send those invoicing and e-reporting, if you are operating in France, you will have two choices. Either use a certified service provider, we call them in France the PDPs, or an e-invoicing public portal called the PPF. So in order to implement e-invoicing in France, France is planning two waves. The first wave will start from September 2026. All companies in France will have the obligation to accept electronic invoices, and large and mid-sized companies will have the obligation to issue electronic invoices. And the second wave will be applicable from September 2027. And this one will be applicable for SMEs, small and micro enterprises, who will have the obligation to send the invoices in electronic format. Please bear in mind that this new timeline is still under discussion, and it is going through the legislative process in France. So it can change by the end of this year, but so far this is the new timeline that has been shared by the French tax authorities. Other additional information that might be helpful for you, an invoice in France will have additional information. We call them mandatory fields on the invoice. So if you need to review your invoices to ensure that you have those data, otherwise you need to set up them in your ERP system. France is going to use the coming months or years, so 2024, to build the public portal. In 2025, they are planning to test the portal, and a lot of companies who want to be part of the pilot can register to this pilot. And by September 2026, we would hope that the portal will be ready and the companies will be able to use it to exchange invoices for those who are going to use this public e-invoicing portal. If you are a company who is planning to use a certified service provider or a PDP, just as a very high level, those PDPs need to go through a certification process or an accreditation process in order to get certification number by giving the French tax authorities guarantees in terms of security of the data and the different services that a PDP is offering to French companies. How the invoicing is going to work in France. So let's suppose you are using Avalara as a PDP in France. In this case, you are going to issue your invoice by using your ERP. You are going to connect to Avalara with an API, and then after receiving the invoice, we will create a compliance invoice and send it to your buyer. According to the platform he is using, either the PPF or the PDPs. In France, there will be what we call life cycles that will be mandatory. So whenever the PPF or the PDP is sending back life cycles, we will be able to get them and send them to you or make them available in our monitor. And Michaela will present later the different features of our e-invoicing solution. Michaela, over to you. For Romania?
Yeah, thank you, Camilla. Romania was one of the countries who had e-invoicing already for certain goods, taxable goods, but the declaration came through recently, so they are now preparing to go ahead and after a few teething problems, but they are now starting within January 2024 for issued invoices as a sort of transitioning or grace period, but from July 2024, it will be mandatory for inbound as well as for outbound invoices. The e-invoicing will apply to taxable persons, like in Poland, who do business with Romania and sell or provide goods and services. I think that's quite important. And it includes taxpayers, not just established, but also registered for VAT purposes in Romania. So it needs to be, if you're not having an establishment in Romania, but VAT registered for VAT purposes in Romania with a company, or one of your clients would be dealing with those, so you need to be aware of that. The invoices must be, again, exchanged electronically by using the national invoice system. That is known as RO e-Factura. And again, it needs to be generated in a predefined XML format, meeting the new RO SIAS invoice standard. Invoices under this mandate must be submitted through the national invoice system within 5 working days from the invoice date. So that's quite important here to remember. Following the transmission of the invoice to the RO e-Factura via the API or an app, a unique identification number will be assigned to that e-invoicing or for this transaction, similar to the case of in Poland. And again, it will do some checks and verifications, as in checking the structure and the syntax, use the logic and semantic behind it, makes sure, and that's quite important, that the authenticity of origin is given, so they will verify and check the identity of the issuing party. Then also, obviously, the invoice content needs to be okay, and that's quite important because for now, no VAT checks initially will be done, but these will be added. And for that, it is going to be very, very crucial that things are being checked thoroughly and done properly first time round, to avoid any hiccups here. Again, with the clearance model in Romania, the ERP system or your client's company issuing the invoice transfers the data via API to Avalara, for example, here, who is then digesting the data with the mapped format in UBL into the right format for the submission to RO e-Factura. Again, like Poland did, they will do these checks as just mentioned, clear it and give you a unique reference number and a stamped invoice to be sent back to the receiver. Okay, in Belgium, there's a bit of an update as well. Camilla, please take us through here.
Yeah, so Belgium, unlike France, Belgium is planning what we call the Big Bang B2B e-invoicing. This means that from January 2026, the Belgian companies will have the obligation to send electronic invoices and also to receive them. This obligation will be applicable for taxpayers who are established in Belgium, but also for taxpayers who are just registered for VAT purpose in Belgium. So I don't know if you are located or if you have established and registered companies in Belgium, but be careful about this important point. In order to exchange invoices in Belgium, companies will have to use PEPL network, and also in order to be able to use PEPL network, they will need to exchange the invoices in an electronic format, which is the PEPL UBL format. In addition to that, and in order to be compliant with other EU regulations that are coming, Belgium is also authorizing the use of other type of electronic format as far as those formats are compliant with the EU standard. Regarding an e-reporting or possible e-reporting, in the first versions of the regulation, Belgium was planning in the same time as the e-invoicing and e-reporting obligations, but because or thanks to the ViDA initiative, the e-reporting is being postponed in Belgium. So I assume that Belgium is waiting for more information and a detailed requirement from Europe about the e-reporting. If you are operating in Belgium, from January 2026, you will need to send your invoices to your service provider, who will be a certified access point, because in Belgium, in order to use the PUPL network, in order to use the PUPL network, you need to use a certified access point. So you will need to choose a service provider who is certified access point, as Avalara here in this slide. So after receiving your invoice, we will process it, create a compliant invoice, and send it to the buyer through the PUPL network, and your buyer will also get it from the PUPL network by using his certified access point. It's important also to mention that we are using the outbound invoices as example, but we can also support inbound invoices in these countries where e-invoicing is also mandatory for inbound invoices. Michaela, over to you for Germany.
Thank you. Germany again. Electronic data transfer or information is not new with EDI, so it's been around a little bit. But B2B e-invoicing mandate is now expected onwards from January 26. So hopefully we will hear about that by the end of this year. The e-invoicing will apply to taxable persons who do business in Germany, with some exemptions. The EDI exchanges will still apply until the end of 2027, and we're waiting to have word, and that will probably come a bit later, if it will completely get removed or it will run alongside and still apply. E-invoices must again exchanged electronically by using a format, and must be compliant with the European standard, the EN 16931. And if EDIFACT is going to be used or not, again, we are waiting for confirmation here. And at this moment, and to our knowledge, there is no clearance model planned in Germany, but again, it can change. We will hear about that as well. So for Germany, please be aware there's a lot to come still, and there's a lot of updates coming soon. We're going to Spain, where Camilla is going to update us on here.
Yeah, Spain is also planning an e-invoicing mandate. In the beginning, we were expecting an e-invoicing mandate in France starting from 2024 because they have published a royal decree a few months ago where we can find a lot of the requirements that are planning by Spain, but because of the internal political issues that they have, we don't have yet the confirmation about the date of the e-invoicing mandate. So we are expecting this in Q1 2025, assuming that the project of the law will be validated and voted by Q1 2024. So in this project, what we can see is that Spain is planning, as it is the same in France, to allow companies to use either the public e-invoicing portal or private service providers. We don't know yet if they are planning to reuse the portal they have already, which is called FACE, or if they are planning to build another new portal as France is doing. They are planning to authorize 5 different formats: UBL, CII, which are compliant with the EU standard, EDIFACT, which is one of the formats that is being used in different industry, And obviously, they are also planning to use their national format, Fatura A, which is already used for the B2G transactions. Spain is planning to make life cycles mandatory. This means that if you are a buyer and you're receiving invoices in Spain, you will have the obligation to inform your supplier regarding the status of his invoice. So you need to accept the invoice. You need, if you don't accept it, you need to reject the invoice, send the information about the payment, and all of those status will need to be sent to the tax authorities within 4 days after the reception of the invoice. As the slide you saw for France, Spain is planning, as I said, the same thing, at least from high level perspective. You will need to issue your invoices to your private service provider. The private service provider will create compliance invoice, and then he will send it to either the public or the national portal or the private service provider that is used by your client. Additional information maybe about Spain. If you are planning to use a service provider, this means that you will have the obligation to sign your invoices. We assume that the service provider will do that for you. There will be also the creation of a human readable version of the invoice. And your service provider will also have a lot of responsibilities and requirements in terms of the security of the data and the interoperability between other service providers. I will not go into detail through the requirement, but you can have them and you can see them here. We have been speaking about ViDA, so we wanted to speak a little bit about ViDA during a few minutes. So ViDA, or what we call VAT in the digital age. So in December 2022, the European Commission proposed a series of measures to modernize the EU VAT system, to make it better and to make it resilient to fraud. And this initiative is called the ViDA, or the VAT in the digital age. After that, or at the same time, the Commission launched also public consultations where countries, stakeholders shared their feedback with the European Commission regarding the content of this initiative, and a lot of amendments have been proposed this summer, and this is why the new version of this initiative has been voted a few weeks ago by the European Parliament. But because of the fact that this vote is not mandatory, the initiative ViDA will have to go again through the vote of the Council of the European Union. So this vote is expected in December 23. So we are monitoring this ViDA project, and we will be informing you as far as we have more information about that. So ViDA has 3 pillars. One of them is the subject of today, which is the digital reporting requirement. This includes 2 obligations: mandatory e-invoicing that will be applicable for domestic transactions, and also mandatory reporting that will be applicable for EU transactions. Those 2 obligations are expected from 2023, and according to some other resources from 2022. So again, we will need to wait a little bit to have more information and final version of this timeline. As items, this ViDA, what you should expect, there will be an obligation to use at least an EU standard to exchange electronic invoices. And in the same time, the EU countries will have the possibility to authorize or to introduce other format, which is already the case in some of the countries that we presented. The EU members will not need anymore to ask for an EU derogation. So there is no need to get the buyer acceptance. The e-reporting will be sent within 8 days after issuing the invoice. In the first version, it was 2 days, I think. There are still a lot of discussions regarding the pre-clearance model. So obviously the countries who are using the pre-clearance model are saying that it's important to keep it, and the countries who don't have any are pushing according to their internal political goals. So again, another subject that we need to follow and to monitor. Companies will also need to send their bank details and payment. And obviously the use of service providers to exchange electronic invoices or to send the e-reporting will also be possible within the ViDA initiative. So we wanted also maybe to take a moment to present our point of view in terms of what is the impact of those regulations on an accountant, assuming that you are a lot of accountants today here. So as an accountant, obviously you will have to understand those e-invoicing regulations and to be informed, because you will have also the obligation to inform your clients. So by doing this, you will be getting new skills and knowledge in terms of e-invoicing all over the world. And this can be an opportunity for you to create new services to support your client, either by training them and giving them information about how they need to do or what's going on about the invoicing. Sometimes you will also need to support them, because they are using you also as their advisor. So obviously they are expecting from you as accountant to support them by understanding the regulations, by telling them how those regulations is impacting them, impacting their business. So yeah, here are some new services that you can offer to your client. Those e-invoicing, either if they are mandatory or just optional, can be also an opportunity to change the way how you are working with your client in terms of exchanging document invoices. So this will help you to automate the processes and focus more on resolving problems than getting the data from your client. This automation will also allow you to have more time to spend with your client. And we all know that it's very difficult for accountants to have time, because they are spending a lot of time on those administrative process. And the data could also be used to have more visibility for your own staff and also for your client. And Michaela will maybe walk us through some use cases on how those e-invoicing could be benefit and could benefit for accountants.
Yes, so it doesn't matter really if, as an accountant, tax advisor, but also as a business itself, you're coming across those scenarios where you are now, you are sort of stuck in collecting data, inputting manual data, then trying to use that data and put it in different formats. And it's all quite time consuming. And then you try to reconcile your balances from the general ledger or other returns like the Intrastat and EC sales listings, and then find there are errors. And what happens, and we see that quite a lot in every business, even small businesses spend then a lot of time and usually a lot of headcount or manpower and man hours and trying to find those errors. With that comes then obviously it's not guaranteed that you find the error, and there's still a quite big risk of submitting incorrect returns, which then obviously leads to audits, disruption to your business, and other costs that come with fines and stuff like that. Now, the vision or the bridge to get to a better solution would be how do I get about that to make sure that this can be excluded? So first of all, can we automate as much as possible on compilation of data for the returns? How can we automate the reconciliation and do some error checks in between? And where can we find those causes where these mistakes and things happen, where we can practically find them very quickly and save a lot of time. A lot of it is technical that we can do with softwares. So we can obviously use software that can auto-populate returns, can pull the real data out from where it's needed, and also combine and handle other related returns so they can be compared and reconciled at the same place. So that's all technical. But also the process, how we go about things, is something you need to think of and probably readdress. And then we have the documentation of justifications for these discrepancies, the process practically. If you do it manually, you don't have any tracking for an audit why things happened and how they were justified. With an automated software, you have what we call in the tech language a hash that actually maps practically every single change to an original value. And this is something which is quite important for audits. Additional to that, which is quite important, is that we are doing additional training and upgrading people's skills. So when people are in the starting point, that they actually know what they're doing and where to look for things. Again, the other thing that is probably more related to you guys in the accounting world. We all know deadlines, and everything is left till the very end. And then you have the data dump, and all of a sudden you have either your whole finance department or half of your finance department sorting through data and trying to file the returns and gather everything together last minute, and being taken out for a day and a half or 4 days, depending on how much there is to do. Also, if it's a bigger company, you might have 2 departments or cross departments where one department needs the data from the other department, and if the other department is slow, then everything gets again a bit congested at the end, and we know what happens. It's gonna be a massive sinkhole for making errors and not being compliant there, having a lot of errors going in. Also, the other thing we found out in talking to a lot of clients, to get a perfect overview of what is your client doing, where he's operating, and the understanding of your client's business as well, to make sure that you know where you get to go. So again, how can we get there? How can we deepen the understanding, the knowledge, and how can we get all the data in specific format and analytics to check that we are doing these returns correctly and in a better way? Again, tech and processes. So making sure we're using a software that can easily combine data or data sets, as well as the process to make sure that it's maybe a real life reporting. So you can actually stretch your work on those returns anytime you want, and not just wait cross-border for other departments to fill in. And then again, shift the emphasis on spending more time to understand your clients and their businesses and their system set up, and managing to do this as well. How Avalara can support you. We are a tech company, as mentioned before, but we can help with registrations in countries. We cover 77 countries, and with that comes not only VAT registrations, but also GST and sales and use tax registrations and PEPL registrations. We cover fiscal representation, for example, and with those registrations, we also do the automation of returns and filings. A very helpful tool we offer is a software called HS classification. We do product classification. There is no limit to how many HS codes there need to be verified or generated. This covers 180 plus countries and might be something that is quite important for your clients or customers who have a lot of goods, physical goods to ship. With that, I'm jumping into Avatax's global tax engine. It's a software that generates, calculates sales and use tax, VAT and GST, and with the help of HS classification, obviously also custom duties. So you have then the full landed cost in your checkout. And as you can see in 2022, nearly 40 billion Avatax API calls were made by customers, which is ever more increasing. And then automation of returns, again, e-invoicing, as we spoke today, and live reporting is another tool. We can support that for 60 plus countries now. You've seen the roadmap before. We are a certified PEPL network provider. We can, and I think that's quite important if you're thinking of Spain, where you need to have a PDF creation or you need to have an e-signature, that our system can do that as well, and support real-time clearance and as well as real-time reporting there. And then we do every other returns that is needed within the indirect tax or VAT reporting on enterprise level with companies who have to handle and manage multinational entities with multiple VAT numbers. So we can handle that as well and help there and do easy sales list and Interstrat returns. We help with ledgers and softies as well. I let Camilla jump in here and explain where we are all involved with.
Yeah, so obviously, as you just saw, Avalara is helping companies through the whole invoicing process, from the tax classification, tax determination, invoicing, and e-reporting. During those steps, the same data are being processed. And in order to support our client and to monitor the changes related to the e-invoicing area or the VAT area in general, we have different memberships beside our content and research internal teams. So we are members of different local organizations that are managing or doing those invoicing. We are also active members in international organization. We are, as we mentioned, PEPL certified access point. This is very important because a lot of tax authorities or government are pushing the companies to use PEPL to exchange the invoices. Obviously, Avalara, we are doing VAT, so we are also member on the International VAT Association. As you can see, we are already supporting a lot of countries, and we are already connected to a lot of portals all over the world. So our support or our way of supporting you as a company is avoiding you to connect with those dozens of portals. So if you use Avalara as an e-invoicing service provider, we can connect you with all of those portals in the different countries where you are operating. And as you can see here, this is the version in 2023, and I'm sure that we will have a lot of other portals in the future where you as company, you need to connect, and as a service providers, we will support you to connect. In order to do that, so as you can see here, we have already more, so dozens of countries that we support directly or through the PEPL network. We have other countries who are in our roadmap, and we are working on them, and we are planning to release them within the few coming release. And we are also monitoring new countries to be able to support our client. Maybe over to you, Michaela, so you can explain a little bit the different features that we have on this solution and that could be useful from compliance perspective, and obviously that could be useful from any user of our solution.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Camilla. On the outbound invoicing or accounts receivable, we showed you earlier how it's working, how the data is digested and transformed to be practically correct for the different mandates out there, and portals to connect with. The key features for our solution has it's hosted in a cloud environment, so it's a cloud-based software. The other thing is it covers multiple countries, so you don't have to have a solution for each single country. That is obviously with the implementation a cost factor as well. And it grows with your business, so you know that if you need Germany and France and then maybe Romania in 2 years' time, you still can add that on. So that's all covered in there. You have the encryption support, so it's all safe. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, and Camilla mentioned for Spain, for example, digital signature and QR codes are supported, as well as the creation of PDFs. That's something to look out for when you're looking for providers. And then it also provides the monitoring system, so you know exactly where the issued invoice, at what stage it is, where it is. Is it issued? Is it on its way? Is it received? Has it been approved? Has it been validated? All this business is there. And then you have your performance dashboards. You can actually see exactly how many invoices were sent out. Is there any errors? What do I need to do? What's to do next and when? And I think quite important as well that you have the digital archiving in place as well. So that's given depending on the mandates where you are. So you have your data stored and archived, quite important for cybersecurity and other certifications you might have to think about. And obviously, then you have your workflow engine there if there's any errors that can be handled as well. What is what's happening on the inbound invoices? It's exactly the reverse. So everything that you have for an outbound invoice, we have for an inbound invoice as well. Again, the same key features, that it's cloud-based, that it handles multiple countries, that it's digital archived, and that you have your monitoring system as well in place as your workflow engine for correction of errors again, and that you can do the PDF creation here for countries like Spain or other countries where other formats still needed. How important is it to know what you need to do before you can implement? You might have clients who are at that stage already or just starting off. So practically you're finding, oh, we need to do something. We need to do an ERP system. We are going to trade with people in those countries where the mandates come in. So the first thing you do, that's what you know, okay, there's something I need to do something. And then where do I need to do something? You're gathering the information. You're gathering the information with your mandates and your data, and make the analysis, check where there is the big gap and how you can rectify this and build the bridge. Then there's the software part that comes here into place with an API, mapping this data, determination of the mandates you want to do, install the API into your own system, and then obviously with the provisioning and the setup, we provide that, and then or a provider would provide that in this case, it would be us. And then you go and check the, select your mandates, activate everything you need. You go down to the integration testing, you test everything before you go live, obviously. And then a very important part here is the user training. So it is very important to have the right stakeholders and the right people sitting here being trained, and not just using the platform, but also making sure that you are training them and consistently training them to be up to date with new legislations as well. And then once everything is done and you are happy to go and you're feeling confident, then we go live. And if there's anything still going wrong, you still have customer support with Avalara. Yeah, if you have any questions, please do get in touch. Our emails are here at the end of the slide. And I think Camilla might have had some questions coming in already.
Yeah, exactly. So we are running a little bit out of time, so I can take one or two questions. The first one is the UK going to implement the e-invoicing? So just as a reminder, e-invoicing in the UK is optional. And so if you want to do e-invoicing and to send or receive e-invoicing in the UK, this is something that is possible and that has been possible for years. However, as far as I know, UK is not planning to make e-invoicing mandatory as in the other countries. So another question would be how ViDA will impact the e-invoicing in countries where the invoicing is already in place. So obviously, as you can see, ViDA is proposing some measures that are different than some of the requirements in place in some countries. So ViDA will impact those countries, but again, we need to monitor the subject in order to see what will happen. But obviously, we know for sure that there will be some changes in those countries. Unfortunately, as I was saying, we don't have the time to go through all of your questions, but we'll follow up with the rest of the questions after the session. I hope that the presentation was useful. I'm glad that you were able to attend, and I would like to thank you for your time and your attention. So have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.